The class of COVID celebrate a win. Record results in this year's exams.
Oh my God!
I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you.
Oh my God! Good! What? Smashed it!
A pandemic, lockdowns and isolation produce A-level results of which students should be proud. But there's criticism over grade inflation and the ever bigger gap between state and private. Also tonight, the latest on legal papers in the US that accuse Prince Andrew of sexual assault.
Tammy on the charge, straight away, is that edged? It is! That's the big wicket!
Cricket throws its hat in the ring to be at the 2028 Olympics, but how exactly would it work?
One day I want to be there, playing cricket at the Olympics.
Teacher by day, dedicated dog rescuer in her spare time. We meet Michelle, the dog detective.
This is the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. The most crucial year of their education had to take place under the cloud of the pandemic and in virtual isolation. But today's A-level results are being hailed as a triumph for the COVID generation of students who faced those difficulties. A bigger proportion of pupils than ever before in England, Wales and Northern Ireland attained A or A-star grades. Record numbers are going to their first choice universities. But the gap between private and state schools has widened. Our UK editor, Paul Brand, has the day's results and reaction.
Today is the day that hundreds of thousands of pupils in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will get their A-level results.
How are you feeling this morning, Bob?
I'm feeling a bit nervous. It's been a really weird 2 years.
For Charlotte and the class of COVID, this morning something else was about to spread.
Take care, Bob. You'll be fine.
The smiles were already infectious at her school as she became the latest to collect record results for A-levels and BTECs. How have you done?
I got 4 A-stars. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm really, really happy.
As was almost everyone, with the grades teachers awarded at Balcarres Academy in Cheltenham.
So I got an A-star, an A and a B.
Well done.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's what I thought I'd get.
How have you guys done?
A lot better than I thought I was going to do.
Pretty much what I expected.
You don't think there was a temptation for teachers to be a bit generous?
It had to be an evidence-led process. We stuck religiously to the national guidelines, and we came up with a scheme of assessment, and these students were assessed.
In total, almost 45% of grades awarded by teachers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland were A or A-star. That's up from 38.5% last year and less than 26% when full exams were last sat in 2019. This year, the gap also widened in England between the number of top grades at comprehensive versus private schools, from 24 percentage points in 2019 to more than 30% this summer.
We know that those from poorer backgrounds suffered the largest learning losses over the last 18 months or so, but it also appears that what school you attend has also shaped what grades you get this year as well.
Wherever students come from, the next concern is where they're going, with a record rush for university places.
We've seen a really big demand from students this year wanting a place at university. At Sheffield, we are doing everything we can to accommodate as many people as possible.
But at least this year's grades were delivered with compassion rather than by computers. The government decided to accept the inflation.
It has been an exceptional year. They've been dealing with exceptional challenges, and I think it's, just rewards for all their hard work, all their commitment.
From 2 years, unlike any other, today's students can at least take some comfort.
Well, the level of comfort does seem to partly depend on who you are and where you're from. This year's system seems to have exacerbated some inequalities, not just between state and private pupils, but also for black pupils, for pupils from poorer backgrounds, and potentially between students of today and students of tomorrow. If you're one of those returning to some normality next year, potentially sitting exams, is the government really going to ask you to accept that next time grades may well fall?
Paul, thank you. Well, the results for school children in Scotland did show the effects of COVID. They're lower than last year across the board, although higher than before the pandemic. The rate of students achieving between an A and C, known as the attainment rate, fell in all the qualifications published today. Scotland's Education Secretary described the results as strong, achieved under extraordinary circumstances. Well, the disruption to their education caused by COVID is unlikely to end for thousands of pupils moving on to university. The continuing effects of the pandemic may mean students doing some of their courses online. The Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, said universities shouldn't charge full fees if they don't offer face-to-face teaching. Rupert Evelyn has more details.
These academic institutions were designed with people in mind, yet they've been empty for too long. COVID forcing students out, and while these halls should hopefully fill again soon, many may find much of their higher education is still online. Megan Pilcher-King spent her last year at uni at home. She paid full fees to do her illustration degree at the kitchen table, and for her it wasn't worth the £9,000 cost.
At the end of the day, the university is an industry, and if you're not getting what you paid for or what was advertised, then I really would be questioning how much you are paying for it.
What are your thoughts about the value of online learning?
The pandemic has changed the way we do things, but is it delivering the same value? Mariam Capri is about to head to Leeds University and hoping to share the experience in person with others, not online.
Maybe the fees for university this year and for students should be reduced, because obviously we won't have access to the same facilities or the same resources as we would have if it was a completely normal year.
As results were being digested today, so the Education Secretary in England was suggesting online learning may not be worth the full fees. Those representing the institutions caution against assuming online is worse.
The government needs to understand that the menu on offer is perhaps not exactly what they're thinking it is. And that's different in every university. And I'm not surprised. There are 140 plus universities all working this through, and the offer will be different across those universities.
Both the universities and the students want to be back on these campuses. But, and it's a big one, so much still depends on what the pandemic will do and the impact that COVID may have. On paper, the future is bright, and if lucky, their next move may escape the worst of the pandemic. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, Bristol.
Prince Andrew is tonight facing legal action in New York over allegations he sexually assaulted a teenage girl. Allegations he's always denied. Virginia Giuffre, one of the accusers in the Jeffrey Epstein case, is seeking damages dating back to when she was 17 years old and therefore, under American law, a minor. Rachel Younger reports.
A middle-aged English prince with a 17-year-old American girl. One photo, two very different versions of events. He says he doesn't remember her. She says that 20 years ago, he used his position to abuse her.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
That was 12 months ago. Now, Virginia Giuffre has gone into detail, saying in documents filed at a New York court that she was compelled to engage in sexual acts with Prince Andrew and feared death or physical injury, claiming he acted knowing that she was a sex trafficking victim, being forced to engage in sexual acts with him. Acts that, as a 38-year-old woman, continue to cause her significant emotional and psychological distress and harm. A civil case, but one that might be tricky to ignore.
If he gets that summons and complaint laid on him, and it's a very dramatic event when that happens, then he can't ignore this. It will not go away if he ignores being served with the summons.
The case hinges on the Duke's friendship with this man who introduced them, the late Jeffrey Epstein. The Duke captured staying at his Manhattan home even after it emerged that Epstein was a convicted sex offender, a friendship he tried to defend in a TV interview where he was asked if he'd cooperate with police investigations.
If push came to shove and the legal advice was to do so, then I would be duty-bound to do so.
Even then, as a potential witness, he was forced to stand down from royal duties. Now he's the defendant, there's little chance he'll be back.
The Queen actually has a view that she doesn't micromanage her children, she doesn't like to interfere, and she does believe that if you wait long enough, things go away. But I don't think they are going to now.
Prince Andrew's always denied any wrongdoing, but while he and his lawyers are saying nothing, the girl in the photograph is now a woman who refuses to be silent. Rachel Younger, ITV News.
3/4 of adults in the UK have now had both doses of the COVID vaccine. That means just under 40 million people are now fully vaccinated. That's according to official figures published tonight. But there was bad data out today as well. A further 146 people have died after testing positive for coronavirus, the highest number of daily deaths since the 12th of March. The last moments of a convicted Islamist terrorist shot dead on a London street by police were shown at his inquest today. Days after his release from prison, Sudesh Aman had started stabbing passers-by before lunging at the undercover officer, tailing him. Juliet Bremner reports.
Leaving his parole hostel, a fake suicide vest concealed under his coat, Sudesh Aman heads out on a Sunday afternoon, intent on bringing terror to a South London shopping street. He walked calmly into a hardware store where he stole a kitchen knife. Then the jury was shown him sprinting out, an undercover officer chasing him down the street. As a man sprinted away, he stabbed 2 members of the public. Both survived. This image shows the 2 undercover officers who eventually fired the fatal shots, closing in on the suspected terrorist. As terrified shoppers try to escape indoors, Sudesh Aman can be seen turning and pointing his knife towards officers. As a man turned to confront the police, he was less than 10 feet away. Half a second later, they opened fire. By then, he was just 3 feet away from them. The barrister representing the police said if the officer had hesitated even for a second, a man would have been on him. The detective in court agreed that's correct. As officers from the firearms unit arrived, a man is lying motionless on the pavement close to death. They approach cautiously. They're heard shouting, "He's got a vest on," and ordering everyone to move. His improvised suicide belt turned out to be fake, but officers had no way of knowing this as they frantically cleared the streets, leaving Sudesh Aman to die alone on the street where he'd tried to kill others. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
Still to come in the ITV Evening News. Fires the size of London rip through California. And how one dog rescue led to this primary school teacher to save hundreds more.
Dogs are my world, really. They always have been. And with Julia, I found out that actually I can help here. I can do something.
Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. With scorching temperatures threatening to make things even worse, 6,000 firefighters are tonight desperately trying to contain the largest single wildfire in California's history. Like other major catastrophes such as hurricanes, it's so big that they've named it the Dixie Fire. And Dixie has already burned an area bigger than Greater London. Neil Connery reports.
California has rarely witnessed wildfires on a scale like this. For nearly a month, they've burned their way through an area the size of London. The state's worst fire season in its history has destroyed hundreds of homes, and there's no end in sight.
Left behind a lot of stuff. Fires ravaged through everything.
It's pretty emotional just thinking of all your neighbors and your friends, you know, that are frantic trying to move all their animals and everything.
As fire crews battle away, only a fifth of the blaze has been contained. And this is the wasteland left in its wake. The historic gold rush town of Greenville, nearly all but destroyed. California's governor says the state is facing an unprecedented situation.
The dries are getting a lot drier, and the heat and hot weather is a lot hotter than it's ever been. The extreme weather conditions, just likes of which we've never seen in our history.
More than 5,000 crew are tackling what's become known as the Dixie Fire, which has now spread through 4 counties. Heat waves and drought have combined to create the deadly conditions, with temperatures hitting nearly 40 degrees Celsius and forecast to stay high. There's little hope on the horizon. Neil Connery, ITV News.
A pedestrian was killed and 2 others injured after a bus crash in London this morning. It happened at Victoria bus station, with one vehicle appearing to have crashed into the other. A witness described seeing a woman trapped underneath the 507. The body's been found of a British hiker who went missing in the Pyrenees last November. Esther Dingley, who was 37, had been walking solo. Her partner, Daniel Colgate, discovered her remains and equipment yesterday. And Twitter has revealed that 99% of the accounts it suspended in the wake of the Euro 2020 racism storm were not posting anonymously. England players Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka were all flooded with online abuse. The social media giant said today most of these tweets had come from UK users. Moves are afoot tonight to get a new sport added to the Olympic roster: cricket. In fact, it has been an Olympic event once before, but you probably won't remember it. It was way back at Paris 1900. It wouldn't make it for 2024, but cricket bosses are pushing for the Games after that, as Sangeeta Lal reports.
Until today, the 100 was one of the latest attempts for cricket to reinvent itself.
Beautifully picked up by Lamb.
It controversially ripped up the rule book for the traditional game to widen its appeal. And the sport's international body doesn't want to stop there, now hoping to see it on the Olympic stage too. But not all fans are behind the idea.
Love cricket, love the Olympics. Let's have it.
Also love cricket, love the Olympics. And I'm undecided.
I actually just don't think it belongs in the Olympics.
If approved, cricket will be part of the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, a time when these fans will be around 18 years old, the perfect age, they think, to be an Olympian.
It would be a great honour to represent Great Britain. I possibly might try and become an Olympian and play cricket at the Olympics.
He's got it! England have won the World Cup!
More than 15 million people watched the World Cup final, a competition with just 10 teams. Competing at an Olympic level, though, might encourage more countries to take part.
You know, there's places like China, which we haven't really, got cricket there. Certain places, obviously, America is another place we want to, conquer, even South America. So this is the opportunity to do it.
The International Cricket Council hasn't said what format it would like the game to be played. If included, though, America wouldn't be its game's debut, appearing at the Olympics in 1900. Instead, it would be a return many have waited for, perhaps securing an even longer future for cricket. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
Legendary Argentina footballer Lionel Messi arrived in France today with an announcement expected soon that he's joining Paris Saint-Germain. He was filmed going through the airport in Paris wearing a T-shirt bearing PSG's slogan, Ici c'est Paris, this is Paris. It's just 2 days since Messi broke down in tears as he said farewell to Barcelona, where he spent his entire club career. Finally, few things are more heartbreaking than losing a much-loved pet dog. And with the best one in the world, this sometimes happens. But help is at hand. A primary school teacher has become something of an expert in tracking down missing poochers and now runs a dog rescue group in the northwest of England. Hannah Miller has the story.
A tale of devotion and unconditional love. When Michelle rescued Juliet and brought her into her home, she realised her talent for tracking dogs down.
Dogs are my world, really. They always have been. And with Juliet, I found out that actually I can help here. I can do something and, try to get people's dogs back to them.
This is one of the hundreds of dogs Michelle and her team have saved, often on alert in the middle of the night to come to the rescue.
The dog will walk in, reach for the food which is there. they'll stand on this plate here and that activates the door.
So how do you know where to put this?
Well, we go off sightings that people have informed us about, and you start to see then which area the dog is keeping to.
It all worked out for Kath's dog, Finn. He had to be tracked for 24 days after he escaped from Kath's daughter's house and didn't find his way home.
It was just an absolute nightmare. I was worried sick about him. I know I wouldn't have had him back if it hadn't have been for Michelle, because I'd have just been like a rabbit in the headlights.
And while Finn's misadventures may have caused a stir in the search for dogs that were lost, a friendship has also been found. Hannah Miller, ITV News in Bury.
OK, that's all from us now. Tom's back later with the news at 10. But from everybody here on the Evening News team, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.